Mate, let's not sugarcoat it. You've been lied to, straight up. Remember that big glossy promise, the one Labor shoved down your throat before the election? Power bills slashed by $275 a year. Vote for us, trust us, we'll sort it out. Yeah, well, how's that working out for ya? Go on, grab your latest electricity bill. Hold it up to the light like it's some kind of sacred text. Does it scream cheaper energy? Or does it read like a bloody ransom note written by a government that's lost the plot? Spoiler alert, it's the second one. Before we tear into this net zero train wreck, where Bowen hides the bill, Labor gaslights you about $275 power discounts, and $500 billion vanishes into thin air. Smash that like button like you're smashing your latest power bill out of pure rage. Subscribe if you're done being scammed by climate fairy tales. And grab the who voted for this shirt, links in the description. Now here's the rub. While you're stressing over whether you can keep the lights on or if you should cut back on heating because the bill's bleeding you dry, the mob in Canberra reckon they're saving the planet with this net zero circus. But saving who, exactly? 'Cause I'll tell you now, it ain't you. This isn't just a dodgy policy. This is a straight-up scam, the biggest economic self-harm project in Aussie history, and they've slapped a green bow on it to make you feel warm and fuzzy. It's a disaster dressed up as virtue. And let's get real here, they knew. They bloody knew this wasn't gonna work. You don't promise billions in subsidies, tear down reliable coal plants, and throw taxpayer money into the wind like confetti without knowing the train's gonna come off the tracks. But what did they do instead? They looked you dead in the eye, smiled, and whispered sweet nothings about cheap, clean energy while their hands were already halfway down your wallet. You've been played harder than a pokies machine on a Saturday night in Dubbo. And the worst bit? This ain't even an accident, mate. This isn't a government fumbling around in the dark. This is a deliberate con. They dressed it up in fancy words. Transition, future made in Australia, renewable superpower, all that marketing guff. But strip it down, and what have you got? A taxpayer-funded, multi-billion-dollar dumpster fire that's making you poorer, dragging the country backwards, and handing out fat checks to corporate mates while you're wondering if you should downgrade from steak to baked beans for dinner. Now, here's the kicker. You want to know what it's actually costing you? You'd think the government would tell you, right? Transparency, accountability, all that jazz. Nope. Ask Chris Bowen and he'll waffle on about modeling like he's reading horoscopes out of the bloody Women's Weekly. Oh, the expert agencies have modeled it, trust the process. Mate, if I had $1 every time a politician hid behind the modeling, I could probably afford my next power bill. They can't even give you a straight number, a proper timeline, nothing. Just smoke, mirrors, and more mumbo-jumbo than a dodgy psychic at a carnival. But here's the truth bomb they won't drop on ya. $75 billion. That's right, $75 billion of your hard-earned cash already committed to this fantasy. Let that sink in. 75 bloody billion. That's not pocket change. That's not a cheeky little experiment. That's your tax dollars funding a green fairy tale with no endpoint and no honest price tag. And that's just the government's direct spending. The Business Council reckons the full cost could top $530 billion. $500 billion. Mate, that's not a plan. That's daylight robbery with a smile. And where's all the dough going? You reckon it's being used wisely? Not a chance. It's being funneled into subsidies and grants and dodgy handouts that make a third world dictator blush. Billions here, billions there, green hydrogen schemes, EV charging stations, bloody handouts to sporting clubs to cut emissions. Imagine that. Your local footy club can't afford jerseys, but hey, here's $50 million to make sure they're net zero compliant. What a joke. It's not climate policy. It's a game of the price is right. Except the only winners are the climate lobby and big corporates laughing their way to the bank while you're left holding the bill. And don't think this is just a one-off. This spending addiction has exploded, mate. 10 years ago, the feds were chucking around $600 million a year on climate stuff. Now, over $9 billion a year. $9 billion. That's a 15-fold increase. And here's the insult, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. In the last Labor budget, net zero gets name dropped 92 times. 92. That's not a policy, that's an obsession. They're more addicted to this than a bogan on the punt. Compare that to the coalition's last budget, which mentioned it 3 times. 3. See the difference? One mob treated it like a side note, the others treating it like the Bible. But here's the really telling bit. All that chest beating about being a renewable superpower, poof, vanished from the most recent budget. Suddenly, the big talk disappears, almost like they've realized they've cocked it up, but they're too stubborn to admit it. So they try to cover it up, quietly, hoping no one notices. But we noticed, mate. And it stinks. And let's not forget the big promise. Cheaper power. That was the deal. They said, put up with the turbines, the solar farms, the ugly transmission lines carving through your backyard, and in return, bills will go down. Remember that? $275 a year down. Except in the real world, what's happened? Since 2022, power prices have jumped up by 50% in some areas. 50%. You were promised a discount and instead, you got a penalty fee for existing. That's not policy, that's political catfishing. And when they get caught out, what do? Deny, deflect, gaslight. Suddenly it's not that promise anymore. No, that was Reputex modeling. They never owned it, apparently. Except, mate, we've got the receipts. We remember the ads, the speeches, the constant hammering of that number. You can't just scrub the internet and pretend you never said it. But that's exactly what they're doing, rewriting history and treating you like you're too dumb to notice. And this ain't just about your wallet, it's about reliability. We're shutting down coal plants, proper 24/7 power stations, with no viable replacement ready. The energy operator has literally warned of blackouts and shortages. We're dismantling a first world grid and replacing it with something that depends on the bloody weather. When the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, what happens? The lights go out. And when that happens, who cops it? Not the pollies, not the activists. You. Your family. Your business. They keep their aircon blasting in Canberra while you're sweating it out with candles in the kitchen like it's the 1800s. And here's the part that'll fry your brain. Even if we smashed all these targets, even if we gutted our economy and lived in caves again, Australia only produces 1% of global emissions. 1%. We could literally shut the country down tomorrow and it wouldn't make a dent. Meanwhile, China's cranking out new coal plants every week, laughing at us like we're the class clown who doesn't get the joke. We're the mug, the punchline, while they get rich. So why the hell are we doing this? For a pat on the head at a UN climate conference. For a few photo ops with global elites who wouldn't know a bunning snag if it slapped them in the face. That's what this is about. Vanity, ego, virtue signaling. Our politicians are more worried about looking good in Paris than looking after people in Parramatta. More concerned about impressing Geneva than keeping jobs in Geelong. It's betrayal, pure and simple. And it gets worse. Instead of hitting the brakes, reassessing, or even admitting maybe, just maybe, they overcooked it, they doubled down. In 2025, they announce an even bigger target. 62 to 70% emissions reduction by 2035. Mate, they're already failing the original target, and now they're making it harder? That's not leadership, that's lunacy. It's like a student flunking maths and deciding, yeah, nah, I'll just do advanced calculus instead. You can't make this stuff up. And when you ask Bowen, how much will this cost? What's the plan? Where's the roadmap? He's got nothing. Just more waffle about expert agencies and continued impacts. He can't give you numbers, can't give you dates, can't give you a proper plan. It's not policy, it's a bloody prayer. Blind faith in a green utopia that only exists in their heads and in the bank accounts of corporations getting fat off subsidies. Mate, I could go on all day, and I will. But here's the bottom line. This is the greatest scam of our generation. They're wrecking our economy, flogging us with higher bills, risking blackouts, handing out billions like lollies, all for a goal that won't change the global climate by a hair. And they know it. They know it's all smoke and mirrors. But they're too arrogant, too addicted, and too gutless to admit they've stuffed it. See you in the next one. And don't forget to smash that like button harder than Labor just smashed your power bill. And if you're sick of being lied to about $275 discounts while coughing up 50% more, grab the who voted for this shirt, wear it when the lights go out, when the next blackout hits, or just down the pub when you're paying through the nose for a schooner while wondering why $500 billion went to green fantasies instead of Aussies. Stay loud, stay awake, and never stop fighting for the Australia we actually deserve.